Hi everyone, and welcome to the technical overview of our airport environment. In this quick overview we will go over on some more of the behind the scenes features of our environment. We will go over the organization of our project, how that we constructed the environment, how all of the assets and materials are set up, and more. We will get started by going over our project organization. When you download our project, you will start with a simple individual folder which is called Abandoned Airport. In here we have created multiple subcategories to properly organize all of our assets. This is definitely needed due to the large volume of assets within this environment. Now let's say that we, for example, go into our assets folder, and next to this we have our lightings folder, materials, scene and textures. However, if we go into our assets folder, what you can see is that we have multiple subcategories. All these categories are linked towards the different types of assets that we have. Let's say that we want to go to assets, and then we would go to props, interior, and let's say that we go to security. In here you can find all of the assets that are specifically relating to airport security. Think about cameras, think about X-ray scanners, anti-theft scanners, all that kind of stuff. Now next to that we also have, for example, things like shops, our different shop items, our different restaurant items, luggage, generic assets, and our baggage claiming area. And next to this we also have more structural assets, which are, for example, our buildings, as you can see over here, which are the buildings over here, or our interior and exterior walls and additional assets. Next to this we have also done the same with, for example, our materials. As you can see, they are also currently organized this way. And our textures, where we can once again go to props, and here we can find all of our props nicely organized. So let's go ahead and select one of our assets. I'm just going to go to my security over here. Now something that you might notice is that these assets all come with a very specific name. This name consists of an ID, and next to the ID it will also consist of a logical name so that you kind of know what the asset is. Of course, all of our assets also have properly generated thumbnails. So here you can see that, for example, if we grab this one, the X-ray scanner, it starts with SM, and this is just because this is required by Unreal, which stands for static material. And then it has our custom ID. In this case the ID is MM50. This is how all of our IDs are structured. They often have MM and then they will have a number. This number associates this model with everything that is linked to this model. Think about textures and think about materials. So if I would go ahead and go to my core folder, so MM56, and I type in MM56, you can see over here that I can find everything that is relating to this model, which in this case is the model, the material, and the textures that belong to it. And we have done the same organization for everything that has to do with our materials and our other structures. Now we will go over later on how our actual assets are set up, so stay tuned for that. Now the next thing that we will go over is our scene organization. Now as you can see, this environment is extremely large. Because of the size, it also has thousands of assets placed into it. So of course we would need good scene organization in order to manage this entire environment. And for this we used streaming levels. If you go to Window and then go to your levels over here, we have created multiple streaming levels which split up the environment in different sections. This is both great because it allows you to edit multiple parts of the environment with multiple artists at the same time. This is great, for example, if you are using source control. And next to that you can also very easily turn on and off different sections of our environment. Let's say that over here we have our buildings. Let's say that I want to just turn off these buildings. I can go up here to my airport buildings and simply press the toggle visibility, and now they are gone. And just like that, our entire environment has been split up like this. Now for example over here I have a lot of decals. These decals make everything look really nice, but they can make your scene quite crowded. So let's go ahead and just turn those off. And now you can see that now our street is a lot more clean. Just like that we can also turn off some cameras, and I'm going to turn off my lighting. Our lighting has been split up between the overall lighting and the interior lighting. This is because our lighting setup for this environment, because it's such a large interior, is quite complex and contains a lot of components. So I can go ahead and I can turn off the lighting over here for our interior. And I will of course keep our exterior lighting because else the scene would be dark. So just like this, let's say that we have our exterior and entrance. I can turn this off and that will get rid of the entire exterior and our entrance. We have our subfloors over here, which you can also turn off. And just like that, you can literally turn off the entire scene. I'm just going to turn off some of the additional blockout assets. And let's go ahead and let's say that we have over here, we have our security room. We can go ahead and turn that one off, and that will nicely split it up. So I think you get the general idea. We have our small terminal, we have our large terminal over here, and then we have our duty-free shopping area, and lastly we have our baggage claim area. Once that's done, as you can see, all that is left is a bunch of empty folders and our lighting setup over here. So this will allow you to easily navigate your environment and just in general work with it in a more efficient way. We will now go over our environment collision, nanite and our mesh distance fields. So of course this entire environment has generated collision. This collision is balanced between auto-generated collision and between manual collision. It just depends on what was needed for the specific assets in question. However, the Unreal Engine automatic collision is often quite good. So if we go ahead and go to Lit and we can go to our player collision, you can see that although the scene runs really slow in the player collision mode, you can see that everything has properly generated collision so that your character can properly collide with it, but still also properly walk up the stairs and just interact with all of the assets. I'm quickly gonna turn this off because it definitely slows down your PC. And next to this, all of our assets also have nanite included. Now our assets, although they use nanite because it will better work with Lumen. But almost 99.9% of our assets are properly created to also work without nanite. So you can simply use them in the more traditional way, for example using LODs. Now if we just go ahead and showcase that, you can go over here, nanite visualization, and let's say that I grab triangles. Now as you can see over here, most of the assets have nanite. Now you might wonder like why some of these assets are black, and this is very simple. This is because they have transparent materials. And currently in Unreal Engine 5.1, which is the engine at which this is running, transparent materials are not supported by nanite. However, when the assets do not use nanite, we still generated LODs for them in order to properly make sure that they are optimized. As you can see over here. And just like that, our entire environment is using nanite, except for, of course, the few assets that use translucent materials. Now next to this, we have also generated proper mesh distance fields on our assets, which is very important in order to accurately portray the lighting in your scene when you are using Lumen. We can go ahead and go into this mode, and as you can see, our assets are generally represented well with mesh distance fields. Of course, within the Lumen system there are some limitations where the generation cannot always be perfect, for example in these really thin assets over here. However, this should generally not impact the lighting quality at all. Now let's have a look at individual assets. Most of our assets, when you select them, they will come with a simple static mesh along with a single material. Of course, depending on the type of asset, let's say structural assets, they might come with multiple materials that use stylable textures. These stylable textures are here to basically cover very large areas to make the assets look good, because you can hardly create unique textures for assets as large as, for example, these roof modules over here. But let's go ahead and go into the asset. Now we have already showed you, if I just go ahead and open it up, that this asset has proper collision and mesh distance fields. So the setup is really nothing special. Our assets are forward facing, they have correct naming, they have correct nanite setup, and their correct material assigned along with all of the IDs. Now of course if the asset does not use nanite, it will have LODs over here. Next to this, it also has proper collision setup, and the default import, if I go over here, the default import scale is set to 1, so that there is no weird scaling going on within your asset. I would say that for the rest there isn't really too much to say. These assets of course also have properly non-overlapping UVs assigned to them, so that you can use them for not just your default assets, but also for example, lighting assets, lighting UVs, or if you have any types of masks that you want to apply with your custom materials. Let's go ahead and turn this off. And that was about it for our individual assets. Let's say that we have some very large structural assets, for example over here. These assets are so unique to our environment that they are quite large. I can go ahead and kind of open it up. However, even when they are this large, as you can see, this is quite a large module, they still come with nanite-generated proper collisions, and the only difference is often that they have multiple materials. This is because we also have included a bunch of tileable materials that you can use to basically map out very large environments. Let's say that I go to this one. Most of these materials are using the UVs of your prop. However, we often also include variations that, for example, have a world space UV. As you can see over here, this metal, when it says _WS, stands for world space. This means that these materials do not need UVs in order to function. This is very easy if you want to do some quick prototyping or just want to quickly change it. Let's say, for example, that I have my roof and I'm not sure about these tiles. I can replace it with a world space UV, that is, for example, metal. And now you can see that although it doesn't look very nice, make sure that when you select it that you actually apply this to the correct one, which is this one over here. I was just lucky that this one can do a drag drop. So you can see over here that although it doesn't look very nice, you can very quickly and easily change your materials. We will go more over materials in the future chapters. For now, however, let's go ahead and move on to our lighting assets. We made sure to make our lighting as easy and flexible as possible. Because of that, we have set up every single asset that in real life would have a light with a lighting functionality, even when they are turned off in our environment, because this is of course an abandoned environment. These assets still have been set up with lighting. Let's say that we go a little bit more to like a darker area like over here. Now if you go into your lighting folder and then go to blueprints and light fixtures, in here you can see all of the lights that are included. You can see a lot of ceiling lights, some exterior lights, some construction lights, and all of our TVs. So let's go ahead and that we, for example, place one of our TVs. I'm just going to place this one over here. Now let's go ahead and just turn on snapping. And with this light, when you place your light for the first time, it will come with two different settings. A on and off stage and an intensity stage. Thanks to the power of Lumen, this will be completely in real time, which will make everything look very nice. So I can now go ahead and just turn it on. And as you can see instantly, this light lights up your scene. The lights also come with a flicker functionality, which is included to give a little bit more of like that post-apocalyptic feel. You can see it a little bit over here, although I don't know if it translates into my recording. However, be quite careful with it, because Lumen is not very good with updating lighting very quickly. So if you push it too much, it will of course break Lumen. Now if we go ahead and go over here in the lighting intensity, you can also completely control this, set it to 2000, to give you a much stronger lighting. All of the lights also work properly with volumetric effects. Even better, we even have ambient effects over here, which are basically our Niagara systems or our particles, which allow for more fog and dust and all that kind of stuff to give you a nice grimy look. As you can see over here, now I also applied my fogginess to it and it makes the scene look really nice and foggy. I'm just going to go ahead and turn it off and let's go into our asset. Now if we go ahead and go into our assets, what you can see is that when we set it or when we open it up, all of our assets have been properly set up with the lighting in here. Next to that we have also a very clean construction, which will give you control over the visibility, over the lighting intensity, and that's pretty much it, because that's so far all that you need. So these lighting assets are just ready for drag and drop. Just like that, we can also go ahead and, for example, this is one of my favorites, which is like the floodlights, which you can use to really add like a lot of interesting, strong lighting to your scene. Our lights also come completely with lens flares, as you can see over here, and are completely set up, as I said before, with our volumetric lighting and with our post effects. They work completely in tandem with also our exterior lighting. This means that our exterior lighting is here to light wherever it can hit our interior. However, if we go down to like some more darker scenes, you can see that it will not interact with any of these darker, more dramatic scenes. We have made sure to comply with the Lumen requirements so that there is no light bleeding or any type of weird visual bugs in this environment. And believe me, this was quite difficult to do because Lumen is quite a new environment, it's quite a new system to use. We will now go over our asset materials. If you go into materials and into the master folder, you can see that we have a few master materials. However, most of these materials are simply variations of our main material. Our main material is the fast track master material, and most assets are using this material. Next to this, it just has a variation for cloth assets and a triplanar, also known as world space variation, which basically allows you to use the material without needing UVs on your assets. Next to this, we also have a two-sided material in case it is needed, and for the rest we have some decal materials, some foliage materials, and just some glass materials that are needed in order to support some more of the unique assets within this environment. But let's focus on our main one, which is our M Fast Track Master. As you can see, this material has been completely nicely organized, giving you a lot of functionality to turn features on and off, and also you can quite easily read what the material is doing. But I will show you by opening up one of the actual material instances. If we go ahead and open this up, and I'm just gonna drag this over here, this material comes with a bunch of functionality. Now we have over here, we have our base color functionality. This will of course allow you to add a simple base color texture, or you can turn it off and just have like a plain color. And it will have some variation in like the base color, and if you want to use any type of special masks. For example, by using a color mask, you can mask out specific parts in your texture and only color those textures. This is really good, for example, if we have an asset like here and we would only want to color, for example, the white areas. In one way that we are using this is, for example, using our suitcases. Over here you can see that I have a suitcase blue variation, and if I just quickly open it up, sorry about the windows, then you can see that over here I'm using a color mask, which allows me to basically control the color of these specific suitcases to give you more variation. Now next to this, we also have a detail normal support. Although it is turned off in this specific asset, this allows you to overlay a second norm map, and it depends on you if you want to overlay it with a tiling of 1, which we sometimes do to, for example, create welding on like very large assets, as you can see over here. Or you can simply tile it by like a factor of 10 or 15 to create micro noise. Next to this, we also have control for a emissive map or just plain emissive colors, tiling control, and we have our norm map control, which will show you next to the normal map also the strength of your norm map. Now we have like the more specific map, which is our channel packed map. Every asset has this in order to save texture space. We call it the ORME map. It basically stands for AO, roughness, metallic, emissive. That corresponds to the different channels. So if we open up one of the maps and turn off the channels, you can see that it starts with red, ambient occlusion, green, our roughness, blue, our metallic, and A are emissive. However, this asset does not actually have an emissive texture. So this map basically saves a lot of texture space and it allows you to push in multiple different textures with only one single map. We of course also have control over our roughness in here, like a roughness multiplier, and we even have special controls, which we'll call the roughness grunge breakup controls, which will give you a lot more variation in your roughness based upon different grunge maps. Now it will take a second to properly like set this up, so instead of me doing that, what I can do is I can simply show you, for example, over here with one of these materials. The roughness breakup is really made more for tileable materials and not really for unique textures. So if we, for example, have this material, you can scroll down and you can see that we applied the roughness breakup. And you can see that although the lumen needs some time to update, you can see that based on how I control this grunge, I can make our floor really, really dull. I can make it stronger, and you can see that it applies different grunge maps over which I also once again have more control. This will give you amazing control to really like break up these large surfaces and create something much nicer. If we press Ctrl D, you can see that over here in our roughness, although I would need to undo my changes. you can see that it just like gives some nice additional control, and you can see that we used it in multiple different areas, like for example over here on our walls and over here on our metallic pieces. Just go back to lid. Oops, sorry about that. There we go. So, lastly, we have one more setting, which I really love, and it is the world space dust setting. For some assets it's turned off, but basically it allows you to very quickly add world space dust to your asset. When you turn it on, you have a few controls, but some of the main controls is your dust opacity, which as you can see when I turn this on, it will add a nice layer of dust to our asset. And next to this we also have our dust tiling, our contrast fall off, to make the fall off less or more, as you can see over here, and to break up our tiling a little bit more. See? So we can control the fall off, we can control the general texture contrast, and of course we also can control the general roughness of this. Now stuff like this might be even better to see if we, for example, grab a metallic asset and turn it on. However, it is often quite overpowering, so we personally like to have like a little bit more intense roughness to make our scene look a little bit nicer. But as you can see over here, we used it, and it will allow us to apply a nice layer of dust on our assets to make it feel more abandoned, which is more what we were going for in this specific environment. Now lastly, something that I want to mention is that, as you can see over here, we have a lot of assets that are clusters, like you can see with the boxes, and like you can see over here with all of our assets. Now these clusters are set up into blueprints. This will save you a lot of time when you are doing the level art for your scene. However, compared to having all of these assets as a separate model, it will be much more optimized in terms of the mesh distance fields and just in general how that the lighting interacts with your assets. You can find these blueprints by going into assets. Let me just organize the rest of my folders. And then if we go ahead and go into our props and then into our blueprints, here you can find a lot of the blueprints. Just like that, we can quickly go in here and we can simply dress our scene. Let's say that we want to apply some additional boxes over here, like that. And let's have the boxes like kind of scatter around. And let's say that we also want to go ahead and just like have some trash sitting around the corner over here. I'm completely improvising here, of course. But you can see that you can very quickly create a fairly interesting looking scene for your environment. Now most of the scene doesn't really make sense, but it's just to showcase you how things are constructed, and quickly you can make everything feel a little bit more messy and abandoned. Just like that, we also have some smaller assets, like for example glasses, as you can see over here, just to make it easier to dress your restaurants and your coffee shops and stuff like that. So I would say that that was about it for this technical overview. If you have more questions, then please feel free to ask me, and I hope that you enjoyed this video.